Back in the late 1990s, a young animator named Seth MacFarlane had a vision that would forever change the landscape of adult animation. He'd been tinkering with animated shorts during his time at the Rhode Island School of Design, creating characters that felt raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically crude. Two shorts in particular, The Life of Larry and Steve, caught the attention of executives at Fox. These weren't your typical cartoon fare. They featured a middle-aged schlub named Larry and his intellectual dog Steve, characters that would evolve into something much bigger. Fox saw potential in MacFarlane's work and asked him to develop a full series. With a budget of $50,000, MacFarlane created a 15-minute pitch pilot in 1998. That pilot introduced the world to the Griffin family, and on January 31, 1999, right after Super Bowl 33, Family Guy premiered to an audience of millions. The show centers on the Griffins, a dysfunctional family living in the fictional town of Quahog, Rhode Island. At the head of this chaotic household is Peter Griffin, an overweight, childish, and impulsive man who works various blue-collar jobs throughout the series. Peter's voice, inspired by security guards MacFarlane overheard during his college days, became instantly recognizable. He's the kind of guy who acts before thinking, whose lack of self-awareness leads to disaster after disaster. Born in Mexico, where his mother Thelma attempted to abort him, Peter was raised by Francis Griffin, a strict Irish Catholic who turned out not to be his biological father. In the episode Peter's Two Dads, we learn that Peter's real father is Mickey McFinnigan, a drunken Irishman who looks almost exactly like Peter but with a red beard. This revelation comes after Francis dies in an accident caused by Peter himself during a unicycle stunt gone wrong. His last words to Peter were calling him a fat, stinking drunk. Peter's ethnicity is Irish, though he also has African ancestry through Nate Griffin, a slave from the 19th century who was owned by Lois's ancestors. Peter's personality traits change from episode to episode, though he's consistently shown as inconsiderate, obnoxious, and childish. Yet beneath the stupidity, there are moments where he genuinely loves his family and friends, showing that despite his many flaws, he has some redeeming qualities buried deep within. Peter's wife is Lois Pewterschmidt Griffin, a member of the wealthy Pewterschmidt family. Lois serves as the more level-headed member of the household, though as the series progressed, she developed her own darker tendencies. She's a talented pianist and martial artist who earned a black belt in Taijutsu. Lois comes from extreme wealth, her father Carter Pewterschmidt being a billionaire industrialist who openly despises Peter. The Pewterschmidt family considers themselves Protestant, though it's revealed that Lois's mother Barbara is actually a Jewish Holocaust survivor who concealed her Judaism. Lois met Peter when he worked as a towel boy for her aunt, and despite her father's objections, she fell for the bumbling worker. Their relationship has weathered countless storms over the years. From Peter's idiotic schemes to Lois's own struggles with her identity as a mother and wife. In earlier seasons, Lois was portrayed as patient and nurturing, the voice of reason who kept the family grounded. But later episodes showed her capable of manipulation, violence, and even affairs with other men. She's shown to have a wild past, including appearing in adult films during her college years, a secret that came back to haunt her. Lois has also displayed signs of kleptomania, drug use, and gambling addiction. Despite being the responsible parent, she's raped Peter multiple times in the series, yet the show portrays this as acceptable because she believes men cannot be raped. Her relationship with her children is complex. She's supportive of Chris and Stewie, but joins in the family's mistreatment of Meg. As the series progressed, Lois transformed from a caring mother into someone capable of terrible acts, including child neglect and enabling Peter's worst behaviors. The Griffin children each bring their own dysfunction to the family dynamic. The oldest is Meg, the perpetually bullied teenage daughter who serves as the family's punching bag, voiced initially by Lacey Chabert and then by Mila Kunis from Season 2 onward. Meg is portrayed as socially awkward, unpopular, and constantly seeking acceptance. Her father, Peter, regularly mocks her appearance and existence, and even her mother, Lois, often joins in the cruel treatment. Meg attends James Woods Regional High School, later renamed Adam West High School, where she faces constant ridicule from students and teachers alike. The main bully is Connie D'Amico, the popular girl who makes Meg's life miserable at every opportunity. Despite being talented and resourceful, Meg's potential is overshadowed by her family's abuse. The show uses her mistreatment as a running gag, though this has drawn criticism over the years for being excessively cruel. In some episodes, Meg fights back against her tormentors, showing unexpected strength and intelligence. She once beat up Connie at school and another time knocked out Peter's professional wrestler sister in a match. She's desperate for love and attention, leading her into unhealthy relationships and dangerous situations. In one disturbing episode, she even asks burglars who break into the Griffin home to assault her, which leads to them filing a harassment suit against her. Meg has dated several boys throughout the series, though most relationships end badly. She fell for a boy who turned out to be gay and attracted to Chris. She dated a convict. She had her kidney stolen by an internet date who still gave her a wonderful day together before returning it. She even briefly dated Quagmire until Brian intervened, horrified by the age difference and Quagmire's predatory nature. Meg's character represents the ultimate outsider, someone who wants nothing more than to be loved and accepted but is constantly rejected by everyone around her. Then there's Chris, the middle child who resembles a younger version of Peter. Voiced by Seth Green, Chris is overweight, unintelligent, and socially awkward, yet generally good-natured. His voice was inspired by the Buffalo Bill character from Silence of the Lambs, specifically how that character might sound working at a McDonald's drive-thru. Chris struggles in school and has few friends, though he's shown more potential for learning than his father. He harbors artistic talent, particularly in drawing and filmmaking. Chris has won art competitions and demonstrated genuine creative ability when given the opportunity. He also has a strangely advanced understanding of painting techniques and art history. Chris has a disturbing attraction to his mother Lois, making inappropriate comments about her throughout the series. He's mentioned wanting to pleasure himself to her photos and called her hot on multiple occasions. He also shares a complex relationship with his sister Meg. Sometimes he protects her and they bond over being the family's less favored children, but other times he joins in mocking her. For several seasons, Chris was tormented by the evil monkey who lived in his closet, pointing at him menacingly whenever he opened the door. Everyone thought Chris was crazy until he finally proved the monkey's existence. They eventually became friends when Chris discovered the monkey wasn't evil at all, just depressed after his wife cheated on him with another monkey. Chris has dated a few girls, including the popular Connie D'Amico briefly, which gave him a taste of popularity that corrupted him. His innocence and good nature make him more sympathetic than some family members, though he inherits his father's stupidity and capacity for causing chaos. The youngest member of the Griffin family is perhaps its most complex character. Stuart Gilligan's Stewie Griffin is a 1-year-old infant with the mind of an evil genius. Voiced by Seth MacFarlane, using a voice inspired by English actor Rex Harrison, particularly his performance in My Fair Lady, Stewie speaks with an upper-class British accent and possesses an intelligence far beyond his years. In the show's early seasons, Stewie's primary goals were matricide and world domination. He built elaborate weapons and devices, created time machines, and plotted endlessly to kill his mother, Lois, whom he blamed for his 9-month imprisonment in her womb. Stewie's catchphrases and villainous monologues became signature elements of the show. He referred to Lois as the vile woman and Peter as the fat man, treating his parents with contempt while building ray guns and mind control devices. He successfully created a weather control machine, cloned himself, built functional time travel devices, and demonstrated engineering and scientific knowledge that would be impossible even for adult geniuses. However, as the series progressed, Stewie underwent perhaps the most significant character evolution in Family Guy. His evil tendencies were toned down after the movie Stewie Griffin: The Untold Story and the 2-part episode. Stewie kills Lois and Lois kills Stewie. He became more flamboyant, friendly, and emotionally complex. The show began exploring Stewie's ambiguous sexuality with numerous jokes and storylines suggesting he might be gay or bisexual. He's shown attraction to both men and women, often engaging in behaviors that suggest homosexual interests, while also pursuing relationships with females. His relationship with his teddy bear Rupert borders on romantic, and he fantasizes about Rupert as a muscular man with a teddy bear head. A running mystery throughout the series concerns whether the Griffin family can actually understand Stewie. In most episodes, his sophisticated speech and violent threats seem to go unnoticed by his parents, yet other times they respond directly to him. Peter has acknowledged hearing Stewie speak on multiple occasions. Lois has had full conversations with him, but in other episodes they treat him as a babbling infant. The show has never provided a clear answer, instead using this ambiguity for comedic effect. Brian and Jillian are the only characters who consistently understand and interact with Stewie as an intellectual equal. One particularly memorable moment addresses this directly when, in the distant future, a student watching old Family Guy episodes asks their teacher whether the family can understand the baby or not, with other students nodding in confused agreement. The teacher has no answer. This inconsistency is intentional, allowing the writer's flexibility in how Stewie interacts with his family. According to Seth MacFarlane, the family hears everything Stewie says but dismisses it because he's a baby, so they don't take his threats and commentary seriously. This explanation doesn't always hold up in individual episodes, but it provides a loose framework for understanding the dynamic. Speaking of Brian, the Griffin family's anthropomorphic dog, a dog, is one of the show's most important characters. Brian Griffin is a white Labrador retriever who walks on his hind legs, drives a Toyota Prius, and speaks with MacFarlane's natural voice. Unlike the other main characters, Brian is voiced without any affectation, making him sound more grounded and relatable. His intelligence rivals Stewie's, and he fancies himself an intellectual, a writer, and a philosopher. Brian attended Brown University but dropped out one course short of graduating, a failure that haunts him throughout the series. He's an atheist despite meeting God and Jesus multiple times, drinks martinis, smokes cigarettes and marijuana, and has a history of substance abuse, including a cocaine addiction. During his brief stint as a police drug-sniffing dog, he joined the police force in the Thin White Line, became addicted to cocaine while working as a sniffer dog, and had to go through rehabilitation. The experience left him traumatized but didn't cure his addictive personality. He continues drinking heavily and using marijuana regularly throughout the series. Brian's origin story has some inconsistencies throughout the series. In Brian Portrait of a Dog, Peter finds him as a fully grown stray on the highway and offers him a home. But other episodes show videos of Brian as a puppy, already living with the Griffins. The show never reconciles these contradictions, treating continuity loosely. Brian was born in Austin, Texas at a puppy mill and was separated from his mother early in life. In the emotional episode Road to Rhode Island, Brian and Stewie travel to Texas, where Brian discovers his mother died and was turned into a table by her owners. The scene is both heartbreaking and darkly comedic as they steal her body to give her a proper funeral, with Stewie delivering a well-intentioned but insensitive eulogy about what a nice table she made. Despite his intelligence and sophistication, Brian exhibits dog-like behaviors. He fears vacuum cleaners, which Lois calls Mr. Hoover. He chases after thrown objects and brings them back in his mouth. He loves car rides and going to the park. He pees on things to claim them. He's easily distracted by tennis balls, rope toys, and belly rubs. He can't resist the urge to hump legs when excited. In one episode, he couldn't control his animal urges around Seabreeze, a prized Pewter Schmidt dog, despite knowing it was inappropriate. His relationship with Peter is that of best friends despite their vastly different intellectual levels. Peter often doesn't understand Brian's references or sophisticated vocabulary, and Brian has to dumb down his speech to communicate with Peter. Yet they genuinely care for each other, with Brian often serving as Peter's conscience, though Peter rarely listens. Brian's bond with Stewie forms the emotional core of many episodes, their adventures together providing some of the show's most memorable moments. Brian's character evolved significantly, particularly in later seasons where he became more pretentious, hypocritical, and self-absorbed. His failed attempts at becoming a published author serve as ongoing storylines. He writes a novel called Faster Than the Speed of Love that receives universal mockery and terrible reviews. When every copy gets returned to him in boxes made from his own books, Brian quits writing temporarily. But out of spite, he then writes a self-help book called Wish It, Want It, Do It that becomes a hit until he embarrasses himself on a talk show by being unable to answer basic questions about his own book's philosophy. His pretentiousness extends beyond writing. He claims to appreciate fine wine but can't tell the difference between expensive and cheap varieties. He name-drops authors he hasn't actually read. He pretends to understand art, music, and culture at levels beyond his actual knowledge. His pseudo-intellectualism becomes increasingly obvious as the series progresses, with other characters calling him out on it. Quagmire in particular despises Brian, and in the episode Jerome is the New Black, delivers an epic rant detailing everything wrong with Brian's character. He calls out Brian's failed writing career, his pretentious attitude, his poor treatment of women, his inability to hold down a job, his mooching off the Griffin family, and his hypocritical liberal politics. This rant resonated with many viewers who had grown tired of Brian's insufferable behavior. Brian's romantic life is chaotic and filled with failed relationships. He's dated numerous women throughout the series, rarely maintaining relationships for long. His longest relationship was with Gillian Russell, a stereotypically dumb blonde who appeared in multiple episodes. Despite her lack of intelligence, Gillian was kind-hearted and genuinely cared for Brian. They dated for about 2 years before breaking up, with Brian realizing he couldn't handle her stupidity long-term. He later regretted the breakup when Gillian married someone else. Brian harbors unrequited love for Lois Griffin, which occasionally surfaces in episodes. In Brian in Love, he develops incontinence from repressing his feelings for her and has to attend therapy. He's kissed Lois multiple times throughout the series and fantasizes about her regularly. This unrequited love creates tension, especially when Peter discovers Brian's feelings. Yet their friendship usually survives these revelations. Brian has also had relationships with other dogs, including Seabreeze and various female dogs at the park. He's attracted to both human women and female dogs, which raises disturbing questions about bestiality that the show usually plays for comedy rather than addressing seriously. He briefly dated a woman with cancer who he married, only for her to die shortly after. He dated numerous one-night stands and casual flings. His inability to maintain healthy relationships stems from his own selfishness and emotional unavailability. Brian's most traumatic moment came in the season 12 episode Life of Brian when he was killed by a speeding car while playing street hockey with Stewie. The episode shocked fans as Brian died on screen, his injuries too severe to survive. The family mourned him deeply, particularly Stewie, who blamed himself for Brian's death. For 2 episodes, the family had a new dog named Vinny, an Italian-American dog with a thick accent. Vinny was likable enough but couldn't replace Brian in fans' hearts. The backlash was immediate and intense. Fans created petitions demanding Brian's return. Social media exploded with anger. Some fans even sent death threats to the show's creators. So finally, in the Christmas episode Christmas Guy, Stewie uses his time machine to travel back and save Brian from being hit by the car. Brian's resurrection was met with relief by most fans, though some felt the entire arc was a cheap publicity stunt. The show never fully explained why Stewie destroyed his time machine initially, making Brian's death possible only to rebuild it later to save him. Regardless, Brian returned and continued his role as the family's sarcastic, intellectual, and deeply flawed talking dog. The Griffin family lives at 31 Spooner Street in Quahog, Rhode Island, a fictional town that serves as the show's primary setting. The street name comes from Spooner Hill Road, where Seth MacFarlane grew up. Quahog is located somewhere in Newport County and is modeled after Cranston, Rhode Island, part of the Providence metropolitan area. The name comes from the quahog clam, an edible shellfish native to the region. The town was supposedly founded by Griffin Peterson, an ancestor of Peter's, after he was exiled from England by King Stuart III. Peterson won ownership of the land in a talent show against Basuguts the King, a ridiculous origin story that fits the show's absurdist humor. Quahog features a mix of suburban neighborhoods, downtown areas, beaches, and various businesses that the characters frequent. The town's zip code is 00093, and it has its own government, police force, and local celebrities. Quahog's geography is intentionally inconsistent. Sometimes it has a coastline with beaches and harbors. Other times it appears landlocked. Sometimes it's near mountains, other times completely flat. The show doesn't worry about maintaining geographic accuracy, placing locations wherever serves the story. This loose relationship with reality allows writers freedom to create whatever settings they need. The neighbors on Spooner Street play crucial roles in the show. Living at 29 Spooner Street is Glenn Quagmire, a sex-obsessed airline pilot whose catchphrase, "giggity giggity," became one of the show's most recognizable elements. Quagmire is a bachelor who boasts about his sexual conquests and keeps detailed records of his encounters. He claims to have slept with hundreds or even thousands of women. He has numerous illegitimate children scattered throughout Quahog, most of whom he doesn't know about or take care of. One daughter, Anna Lee, was dropped off at his doorstep as an infant. Quagmire tried raising her but eventually gave her up for adoption, believing she deserved a better life than he could provide. Quagmire's obsession extends to Lois Griffin, his best friend's wife. He keeps pictures of her throughout his house, including inside his closet. He's been caught peeping on her and openly fantasizes about her. Despite this creepy behavior, Quagmire remains Peter's close friend, and Peter seems oblivious to or accepting of Quagmire's feelings for Lois. Quagmire is revealed to be half Polish. his original name being Glenn Quagglechek before he changed it. He was obese as a child before losing weight as an adult. Despite his perverted nature, Quagmire can be loyal to his friends and has shown depth beyond his sex addiction. He served in the military and is a skilled pilot. He has a soft spot for animals, with Brian being notably the only animal he dislikes intensely. His hatred for Brian develops gradually over the series, culminating in his famous rant about Brian's character flaws. This hatred stems from Brian's pretentiousness, his poor treatment of women despite claiming to be a feminist, his mooching lifestyle, and his general hypocrisy. Quagmire sees through Brian's intellectual posturing and calls him out repeatedly. The two have come to blows physically on multiple occasions. Despite their mutual hatred, they occasionally work together when necessary, though they never truly become friends. Quagmire's sex addiction borders on criminal behavior. He's shown engaging in highly questionable activities, including implied date rape. His house is equipped with hidden cameras and mechanical restraints. He drugs women's drinks and tricks them into sexual situations. The show plays this for dark comedy, but it's revealed that Quagmire is essentially a sexual predator. He's also had sex with transgender individuals, including Cleveland's father, who became Ida after transitioning. This led to more conflict with the friend group when Brian briefly dated Ida, disgusting everyone, including the usually accepting Quagmire. At 33 Spooner Street lives the Swanson family. Joe Swanson is a paraplegic police officer who lost the use of his legs in an accident. The specifics of how he became paralyzed have been told differently in various episodes, another example of the show's loose continuity. Despite his disability, Joe is incredibly strong and athletic. Often performing impressive feats from his wheelchair, he can do pull-ups, backflips, and uses upper body strength to compensate for his immobility. He's voiced by Patrick Warburton and speaks with a distinctive tough guy voice that perfectly captures Joe's macho personality. Joe works for the Quahog Police Department, where his disability doesn't stop him from being an effective officer. He's been involved in numerous dangerous situations, shootouts, investigations, and arrests. His police work often involves the other guys, with Peter, Quagmire, and Cleveland sometimes helping or hindering his cases. Joe is married to Bonnie Swanson, a marriage that has its ups and downs throughout the series. Bonnie was pregnant for multiple real-world years and many seasons before finally giving birth to their daughter Susie in the episode Ocean's 3.5. The joke about her endless pregnancy became one of the show's longest-running gags. They also had a son, Kevin, who served in the military. Kevin was initially reported as missing in action in Iraq, then later confirmed dead, bringing tragedy to the Swanson household. Joe's character deals with themes of disability, masculinity, and coping with physical limitations. In one episode, he regains the ability to walk temporarily. Rather than being grateful, Joe becomes arrogant, aggressive, and unlikable. His personality changes so drastically that his friends and family prefer him in the wheelchair. He realizes he's a better person when disabled, a dark commentary on how his limitations forced him to develop better character traits. Joe eventually loses his ability to walk again and accepts his wheelchair as part of his identity. His relationship with Bonnie has been rocky. They've separated temporarily, with both partners showing frustration with their situation. Bonnie has expressed resentment about caring for a disabled husband, while Joe feels emasculated by his condition. Yet they've worked through their problems repeatedly, staying together through various challenges. Joe's friendship with Peter, Quagmire, and Cleveland provides him support and companionship, though they also enable his worst behaviors and drag him into stupid schemes. The fourth member of Peter's friend group is Cleveland Brown, the calm, soft-spoken neighbor who lived at 30 Spooner Street, before getting his own spin-off show. Cleveland was originally married to Loretta Brown, a relationship that seemed stable for the first several seasons. However, in the episode The Cleveland-Loretta Quagmire, it's revealed that Loretta has been having an affair with Quagmire. The betrayal devastated Cleveland, particularly because it involved one of his best friends. Initially, Cleveland responded with his typical mild-mannered approach, not standing up to either Loretta or Quagmire. But when Loretta called him pathetic for his passivity, something snapped inside Cleveland. He nearly killed Quagmire in a rage, showing a violence side viewers had never seen before. After the divorce, Cleveland went through a period of dating various women trying to find happiness again. This character arc showed Cleveland developing assertiveness and self-respect he'd previously lacked. He eventually moved to Stoolbend, Virginia, where the Cleveland show took place from 2009 to 2013. In Stoolbend, Cleveland married Donna Tubbs, a woman he'd actually dated back in high school before meeting Loretta. Donna had 2 children from a previous relationship, Roberta and Rollo, making Cleveland a stepfather. He also brought his son Cleveland Jr. with him, though Jr.'s character underwent a dramatic change for the spin-off, transforming from an energetic athletic kid to an obese nerd. This unexplained personality shift was never addressed by either show. The Cleveland show followed Cleveland's new life with his blended family, exploring themes of second chances, family dynamics, and small-town life. While it had its fans and ran for 4 seasons, producing 77 episodes, The Cleveland Show never achieved the same cultural impact or ratings as Family Guy. Fox canceled it in 2013, and Cleveland returned to Quahog with his new family in tow, moving back into his old house on Spooner Street. Cleveland's role in Family Guy post-return is similar to his pre-spin-off presence, serving as the calm voice of reason among the guys and providing support to Peter's schemes. Cleveland works as a postal carrier in later seasons after losing his deli business. He briefly worked at Pawtucket Brewery alongside Peter, but returned to postal work after union intervention helped him reclaim his old job. These 4 men, Peter, Quagmire, Joe, and Cleveland, form the core friend group that spends most of their time at the Drunken Clam, Quahog's local bar. The Clam serves as a sanctuary for the guys where they drink, tell stories, avoid their family responsibilities, and engage in the male bonding that forms a key part of the show. The bar was originally owned by Horace, a friendly bartender who knew all the regulars and tolerated their antics. Horace died in the episode Save the Clam after the bar faced foreclosure. The guys tried desperately to save the establishment that meant so much to them, but Horace's death during their efforts added tragedy to the storyline. After Horace's death, Jerome took over ownership of the Drunken Clam. Jerome is a smooth-talking African-American man who brings different energy to the bar but maintains its role as the guys' hangout spot. Jerome is more hip and modern than Horace was, occasionally clashing with the guys' old-fashioned attitudes. He's confident, successful, and at one point dated Lois's friend, creating awkward situations. Many episodes begin or end at the Drunken Clam, using the bar as a framing device for stories. The guys sit at their usual table, drink their usual beers, and discuss whatever situation they're currently facing. The bar has a back room with a ping-pong table where they've played competitive games. It's been the site of various events, including Stewie crashing through the wall in Brian's Prius during one memorable episode. Peter's employment history throughout the series is extensive and chaotic, reflecting his inability to hold steady work or maintain professional behavior. He started working at the Happy-Go-Lucky Toy Factory under Mr. Weed, an eccentric boss with bizarre management techniques. Mr. Weed eventually choked to death on a dinner roll that Brian had been choking on, a death that was both sudden and darkly comedic. Peter then briefly worked as a fisherman, purchasing a boat with a ridiculously long name, the SS, more powerful than Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, and the Incredible Hulk put together. His fishing career ended when the boat was destroyed in a hurricane during the episode The Perfect Castaway, leaving Peter and his friends stranded on a deserted island for months. After being rescued, Peter needed new employment and eventually found work at the Pawtucket Brewery, where he works as a shipping clerk or forklift operator. Suits' brewery produces Pawtucket Patriot Ale, Peter's favorite beer and a frequent product placement throughout the series. His boss at the brewery was Angela, a stern businesswoman who managed the facility with an iron fist. In a controversial storyline, Angela sexually harassed Peter, pursuing him romantically despite his married status and forcing him into uncomfortable situations. The storyline reversed typical workplace harassment dynamics, with Lois inexplicably encouraging Peter to go along with Angela's advances rather than taking the situation seriously. Angela was eventually written off the show after her voice actress Carrie Fisher passed away. The show acknowledged her death with Peter giving a eulogy, officially retiring the character respectfully. New management took over the brewery, including Bert and Sheila, an interracial couple who became the new bosses. Peter has also held numerous other jobs throughout the series for single episodes or short arcs. He's been a fisherman, a paparazzo chasing celebrities, a Renaissance fair worker, a bodega owner, a tobacco company spokesman, a TV producer, a traveling salesman, and countless other occupations. His inability to keep jobs stems from his incompetence, irresponsibility, and tendency to destroy or ruin whatever he touches. Most episodes featuring Peter's employment end with him getting fired or the business closing down due to his actions. Lois's family, the Pewterschmidts, represent old money and high society, standing in stark contrast to Peter's blue-collar background. Her father, Carter Pewterschmidt, is a ruthless billionaire industrialist who owns numerous companies and wields enormous political power. Carter is voiced by Seth MacFarlane, using a voice that suggests old money, entitlement, and conservative values. He serves as an antagonist in many episodes, constantly belittling Peter and trying to control his daughter's life. Carter cannot understand why Lois married someone so far beneath her social station and makes his contempt clear at every opportunity. He's attempted to break up their marriage multiple times, offering Peter money to divorce Lois or setting up situations designed to drive them apart. Despite his wealth and power, Carter is deeply flawed. He's had numerous affairs, treated his workers terribly, engaged in illegal business practices, and shown himself to be morally bankrupt despite his privileged position. Lois's mother, Barbara, is more passive, but shares her husband's disdain for Peter. She's a stereotypical wealthy socialite concerned with appearances, social standing, and maintaining the family's reputation. Barbara is less actively antagonistic than Carter, but enables his behavior and agrees with his assessment of Peter as unworthy of their daughter. The Pewterschmidts live in a mansion called Cherrywood Manor, complete with servants, expensive art, and all the trappings of extreme wealth. The estate represents everything Peter is not: refined, wealthy, connected, and respectable. Episodes set at the Pewterschmidt mansion usually involve Peter feeling out of place and inadequate while simultaneously mocking the pretensions of high society. In one memorable episode, Peter and Lois temporarily inherit the mansion and live as wealthy aristocrats, only to realize they prefer their middle-class life in Quahog. Lois also has a sister named Carol who appears occasionally, going through multiple marriages and relationships throughout the series. Carol is more grounded than her parents, but still carries the Pewterschmidt name and associated baggage. Perhaps most disturbing is Patrick Pewterschmidt, Lois's older brother who was kept secret from her growing up. Patrick was institutionalized after witnessing their mother having an affair with comedian Jackie Gleason, an event that traumatized him and caused a psychological break. He became a serial killer known as the Fat Guy Strangler, targeting and murdering overweight men by strangling them. This puts Peter directly in danger when they finally meet, as Patrick's compulsion to kill fat men overrides any family loyalty. The Fat Guy Strangler storyline is one of the show's darker plots, mixing horror elements with comedy as Peter narrowly avoids being murdered by his brother-in-law. On Peter's side of the family tree, his adoptive father, Francis Griffin, was a strict Irish Catholic who regularly abused Peter emotionally and psychologically throughout his childhood and adult life. Francis was voiced by Charles Durning and portrayed as a bitter religious zealot who used his faith as a weapon to judge and control others. He despised Lois for being Protestant, frequently calling her a Protestant whore despite her being his son's wife and the mother of his grandchildren. His devout Catholicism bordered on fanatical obsession, and he tried to force his religious views on everyone around him, particularly Peter. Francis showed Peter no affection or approval, constantly criticizing him and expressing disappointment in how his life turned out. Their relationship was toxic and abusive, with Francis using guilt and shame to manipulate Peter. Francis died after Peter accidentally crushed him during a drunken unicycle performance at Meg's 17th birthday party. Peter, dressed as Pee-Pants, the inebriated hobo clown, attempted a unicycle trick while intoxicated and fell on Francis, causing fatal injuries. As Francis lay dying in the hospital, his final words to Peter were calling him a fat, stinking drunk, unable to express love or forgiveness even in his last moments. This traumatic death led to Peter discovering the truth about his parentage. Peter's mother, Thelma Griffin, raised him in the Catholic faith despite his unusual birth circumstances in Mexico. She had gone to Mexico specifically to get an abortion, but Peter survived the procedure and was born anyway. Thelma is portrayed more sympathetically than Francis, shown as a kind woman trapped in a marriage to an abusive religious fanatic. After Francis's death, Peter learned about his biological father, Mickey McFinnigan, from Thelma, finally understanding why Francis had treated him so poorly. Mickey McFinnigan lives in Ireland and serves as the town drunk, a position of high respect and prestige in his community. Mickey looks almost exactly like Peter, but with a prominent red beard and Irish accent. He also has a talking sheep companion named O'Brien who shares mannerisms with Brian Griffin, suggesting a genetic component to having anthropomorphic animal companions. When Peter first meets Mickey, his father doesn't believe their relationship until Peter beats him in a drinking contest, proving he's truly Mickey's son through superior alcohol tolerance. Mickey represents Peter's Irish heritage and explains many of his personality traits, from his drinking habits to his impulsive nature to his lack of intelligence. Unlike Francis, Mickey accepts Peter for who he is, though their relationship remains distant due to geography and Mickey's alcoholism. The show's supporting cast extends far beyond the main families and neighbors. At James Woods Regional High School, later renamed Adam West High School, Meg and Chris encounter various teachers and students who populate their school storylines. Connie D'Amico is the stereotypical popular girl who serves as Meg's primary tormentor. Connie is beautiful, wealthy, cruel, and enjoys making Meg's life miserable simply because she can. In one satisfying moment, Peter violently attacks Connie after witnessing her bully Meg, beating her bloody with a fire extinguisher in an act of paternal protection that shocked viewers. Principal Shepard runs the school with questionable competence and disturbing hints of inappropriate behavior. The show implies he's touched students inappropriately, has gambling problems, uses drugs, and generally shouldn't be in charge of an educational institution. Yet he remains principal throughout the series, protected by bureaucracy and the show's loose relationship with consequences. Mayor Adam West, voiced by the late actor of the same name, served as Quahog's eccentric mayor for most of the series. Adam West played himself, or rather a fictionalized version of himself, who happened to be the mayor of a small Rhode Island town. This version of Adam West was delightfully insane, with storylines involving him fighting invisible criminals he believed were threatening the city, being terrified of Christmas lights because he thought they were spying on him, declaring war on the Amish, and engaging in countless other bizarre activities. His mayoral decisions were nonsensical yet delivered with complete seriousness, creating comedy through the contrast between his authority and his obvious mental instability. West's character embraced the absurdity of his situation, never breaking character or acknowledging how strange his behavior was. When the real Adam West passed away in 2017, the show respectfully retired the character. Peter delivered a eulogy acknowledging West's contributions to Quahog, and the fictional mayor died off-screen, his legacy honored without exploiting the actor's death for cheap jokes. A new mayor was eventually elected, but none could replace the unique charm of Adam West's portrayal. The town's news is delivered by Channel 5 News, Quahog's local television station. Tom Tucker serves as the main news anchor, an arrogant and self-centered journalist voiced by Seth MacFarlane. Tucker is vain, unprofessional, and often reports news with obvious bias toward his own interests. He had a son named Jake Tucker who was drawn in a completely different animation style than everyone else in Quahog, a visual joke about him being adopted or possibly not being Tom's biological son. Tom's co-anchor for many seasons was Diane Simmons, a bitter former beauty queen who resented aging out of her prime. Diane harbored secret hatred for Tom and others who she felt had wronged her over the years. In the murder mystery episode And Then There Were Fewer, styled after Agatha Christie novels, Diane was revealed as the killer. She murdered James Woods, her former lover who had left her for a younger woman, and killed several others to cover her tracks. During a dramatic confrontation, Diane was herself shot and killed by Lois, ending her murder spree. The news team also includes Trisha Takanawa, an Asian reporter who speaks with an exaggerated nasal monotone voice, and covers various stories around Quahog with deadpan delivery. Her reporting style never changes regardless of story importance, whether covering a bake sale or a terrorist attack. Then there's Ollie Williams, the BlacUweather meteorologist who delivers rapid-fire weather reports that rarely last more than 2 seconds. He shouts brief statements like, "It's raining," or "It's gone rain," before the camera cuts away, making his segments memorable for their brevity. Other recurring characters populate Quahog's landscape. Herbert is the elderly pedophile who lives down the street at 35 Spooner Street and harbors an unsettling interest in Chris. Herbert speaks with a creaky, labored voice and uses a walker to move around, playing up his frailty while making disturbing comments about young boys. Despite the dark implications of his character, Herbert is consistently played for uncomfortable comedy rather than being treated as a serious threat. The show walks a fine line with Herbert, using him for jokes while technically never showing him actually harm anyone. There's also Mort Goldman, the Jewish pharmacist who runs Goldman's Pharmacy in downtown Quahog. Mort is neurotic, anxious, and frequently the butt of Jewish stereotypes jokes. His son, Neil Goldman, is the nerdy teenager who has an obsessive, unrequited crush on Meg. Neil represents the stereotypical nerd character, complete with glasses, acne, and social awkwardness. he genuinely cares for. Megan treats her better than most people, but she finds him repulsive despite him being one of the few people who shows her kindness. Consuela the maid appears in various episodes with her distinctive broken English and stubborn refusal to follow instructions. Her catchphrase, "No, no, no," became widely quoted, as did her constant requests for more lemon pledge regardless of what she's being asked to do. Consuela represents a stereotypical Hispanic cleaning lady, which has drawn criticism for potentially racist characterization, though the show maintains she's a beloved character rather than a hateful one. The greased-up deaf guy is exactly what his name suggests, a naked man covered in grease who runs around evading capture while yelling that he's a deaf guy and you'll never catch him. This bizarre character appears periodically when the show needs random chaos, sprinting through scenes completely nude and slippery. Bruce is the performance artist, a flamboyantly gay man who works various jobs around Quahog and speaks with an exaggerated effeminate voice. He's typically friendly and upbeat, often appearing in minor roles that require a campy gay character. Family Guy became famous for its cutaway gags, brief tangential sequences that interrupt the main story for comedic effect. These cutaways can reference anything from current events to obscure historical moments, to completely absurd scenarios that exist only in Peter's imagination. They became a signature style of the show, instantly recognizable and frequently parodied. The cutaways typically begin with a character saying something like, "This is worse than that time when," or "Remember when," before the scene transitions to the unrelated gag. Some cutaways last just a few seconds, while others extend for a minute or more. They allow the writers to make jokes about topics completely unrelated to the episode's plot, giving the show an anarchic, anything-goes energy. Critics argue these cutaways disrupt narrative flow and serve as lazy writing, allowing jokes to exist without setup or consequence. Defenders claim they're part of the show's unique voice and provide comedic freedom unavailable in more structured sitcoms. South Park famously mocked this style in episodes that depicted Family Guy's writing process, as manatees randomly selecting idea balls, suggesting the jokes were random rather than cleverly written. Regardless of critical opinion, the cutaway gags became synonymous with Family Guy's comedic approach. The show's history is as dramatic as its content. After premiering in January 1999 following Super Bowl 33, Family Guy struggled with ratings despite generating critical attention and developing a cult following. Fox executives didn't seem to understand how to market or schedule the show. They kept moving Family Guy to different time slots, making it nearly impossible for fans to find the show consistently. The second season aired Thursdays at 9 p.m., directly opposite NBC's Frasier, one of the most popular sitcoms of that era. Family Guy couldn't compete with Frasier's established audience, and ratings declined. Fox then moved the show to Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m., where it faced ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the massive game show phenomenon that dominated ratings across all networks. Again, Family Guy lost the ratings battle. In May 2000, Fox canceled Family Guy at the end of its second season, ending what seemed like a promising but short-lived show. However, Fox gave the show a last-minute reprieve, ordering 13 more episodes for a third season. This seemed like a second chance for Family Guy to find its audience, but Fox put the show in an even worse time slot. Thursday nights at 8 p.m., directly opposite Friends, the most-watched show on television at that time, and Survivor on CBS, the reality TV phenomenon that captivated America. Family Guy stood no chance against these ratings juggernauts. The third season aired from November 2001 through February 2002, bleeding viewers each week as Friends and Survivor crushed it in ratings. Fox canceled the show again in 2002, this time seemingly for good. One episode, When You Wish Upon a Weinstein, remained unaired due to controversy over its content. Fox executives deemed the episode too offensive for broadcast, shelving it indefinitely. This final cancellation appeared permanent. The show was dead, another failed sitcom that couldn't find its audience in increasingly competitive network television. But something unexpected happened during Family Guy's cancellation period. Cartoon Network's Adult Swim programming block, which aired late-night content for adult audiences, purchased the rights to air Family Guy reruns cheaply. Adult Swim needed content, and Family Guy was available for almost nothing since it had been canceled and written off as a failure. In April 2003, Adult Swim began airing Family Guy reruns as part of their lineup. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Family Guy became Adult Swim's top-rated program almost instantly, dominating late-night cable viewership in its time slot. Ratings increased by 239% compared to what Adult Swim had been airing previously. Young adults, particularly college students, discovered or rediscovered the show, making it appointment viewing. The same audience Fox couldn't reach with their primetime broadcasts found Family Guy through cable reruns at midnight. Simultaneously, Fox released the first 2 seasons of Family Guy on DVD in 2003. Right as the Adult Swim reruns were building buzz, the timing was perfect. Fans who enjoyed the reruns wanted to own the episodes, and the DVD sets became phenomenal sellers. The first volume moved 400,000 copies in its first month, unprecedented for a canceled TV show. Eventually, the DVD sold 2.2 million units, making it the second highest-selling television DVD of all time, behind only Chappelle's Show Season 2. The combination of strong Adult Swim ratings and extraordinary DVD sales sent a clear message to Fox executives. They had made a terrible mistake canceling Family Guy. The show had found its audience, just not through traditional network broadcasting. Fox had essentially given away a valuable property that was now making money for everyone except them. In 2004, Fox made the unprecedented decision to resurrect Family Guy. This was historic and groundbreaking. Networks had brought back canceled shows before, but never after fully canceling them and having them succeed elsewhere first. The uncancellation became major entertainment news. Fans who had mourned the show's death celebrated its return. Seth MacFarlane and the creative team were brought back to produce new episodes. Fox ordered 35 episodes for the 4th season, showing serious commitment to the show's revival. On May 1, 2005, Family Guy returned with the episode North by North Quahog. The episode acknowledged the cancellation metatextually right from the opening, with Peter announcing "We've been canceled" before listing all the failed shows Fox had aired during Family Guy's absence. This self-aware humor endeared the show to fans while also taking shots at Fox's poor decision-making. Between the cancellation and resurrection, a direct-to-DVD movie was produced called Stewie Griffin: The Untold Story. Released in 2005, this feature-length film explored Stewie's future and included storylines about his sexuality, his relationship with Brian, and what happens to the Griffin family years down the line. The movie featured Stewie discovering he grows up to become a virgin working at a boring job, which horrifies him so much. He tries to change his future. The movie tackled more adult themes and featured content that couldn't air on television, taking advantage of the DVD format's freedom from broadcast standards. It was financially successful, selling well, and demonstrating continued interest in Family Guy content. Later, the movie was edited into 3 episodes for television broadcast: Stewie Be Good, Bango Was His Name, Oh, and Stu and Stewie's Excellent Adventure. These episodes became part of Season 4, though they don't flow perfectly since they were originally conceived as a continuous film. The movie's success, combined with the DVD sales and Adult Swim ratings, proved Family Guy was commercially viable and worth Fox's investment in revival. Post-resurrection, Family Guy became bolder and more controversial in its content. The show pushed boundaries with its humor, tackling subjects like religion, politics, sexuality, abortion, drugs, and social issues with an increasingly irreverent tone. This led to both critical acclaim from fans who appreciated the fearless comedy and significant backlash from groups who found the content offensive or inappropriate. Episodes were sometimes pulled from broadcast due to content concerns or current events, making certain jokes seem tasteless. The episode Partial Terms of Endearment dealt with abortion and stem cell research in ways Fox deemed too controversial for American broadcast. The network refused to air it in the United States, though it was shown internationally and released on DVD. This created the unusual situation of a Family Guy episode that existed and could be purchased but never aired on American television. Another episode was pulled following the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in December 2012 due to its violent content being deemed too sensitive given the national tragedy. The show faced legal challenges over the years that tested the boundaries of parody and free speech. Carol Burnett sued Fox and Seth MacFarlane in 2007 over an episode that featured her character in a pornographic parody situation. Burnett argued the portrayal defamed her and damaged her reputation. The case went to court, where Fox successfully defended the content as protected parody. The Bourne Company, which owns rights to When You Wish Upon a Star, sued over the controversial episode When You Wish Upon a Weinstein, which featured a song called I Need a Jew set to the melody of the Disney classic. The lawsuit claimed copyright infringement, though courts again ruled in favor of Family Guy's right to parody. These legal battles highlighted the show's willingness to push boundaries even when facing potential financial and legal consequences. The victories in court established precedents about what parody protections cover, giving the show and similar programs more freedom to reference and mock copyrighted material. Family Guy's success led to expanded media and spin-offs that built a larger franchise. The Cleveland Show was the first major spin-off, running from September 2009 to May 2013. The show followed Cleveland's new life in Steubenville, Virginia after his divorce from Loretta. While it had its fans and lasted 4 seasons, producing 77 episodes, The Cleveland Show never achieved the same cultural impact or ratings as its parent show. Critics and audiences found it less funny and more derivative, essentially Family Guy with Cleveland instead of Peter as the protagonist. Fox canceled The Cleveland Show in 2013, and Cleveland returned to Quahog with his new family, resuming his supporting role on Family Guy. The spin-off's failure suggested that Family Guy's magic couldn't easily transfer to other characters or settings, or perhaps that the market was saturated with MacFarlane's comedic style. More successful were the Star Wars parody specials that Family Guy produced. Blue Harvest retold the first Star Wars film with Family Guy characters Something Something. Something Darkside covered The Empire Strikes Back, and It's a Trap parodied Return of the Jedi. These hour-long specials were beloved by fans who appreciated both franchises. They demonstrated the show's ability to sustain extended parodies while maintaining their distinct voice. The Star Wars specials were released as separate DVDs and later edited into episodes for broadcast. They represented Family Guy at its most ambitious, taking on one of pop culture's most sacred franchises and treating it with a mix of reverence and irreverence. The specials were so successful they became some of the most watched and best-selling Family Guy content ever produced. Video games, merchandise, books, and other media expanded the Family Guy universe beyond television. The Family Guy video game was released in 2006 for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. While not critically acclaimed, it sold reasonably well based on the show's popularity. A pinball machine was released by Stern Pinball in 2007, featuring voice work from the cast and show references throughout. Family Guy Online was a browser-based MMORPG that ran from 2012 to 2013 before shutting down. The Quest for Stuff became a more successful mobile game, similar to The Simpsons Tapped Out, where players build their own Quahog and recreate show moments. These games had varying degrees of success but kept the franchise visible across different media platforms. Books published about Family Guy included Family Guy and Philosophy, a collection exploring connections between the show and historical philosophers. Brian Griffin's Guide to Booze, Broads, and the Lost Art of Being a Man was written from Brian's perspective, expanding his character beyond television. Inside Family Guy. An illustrated history was released in 2019 to commemorate the show's 20th anniversary, featuring behind-the-scenes information, artwork, and commentary from creators. These books generated additional revenue while giving hardcore fans deeper engagement with the franchise. Merchandise ranging from toys to clothing to household items, featuring Family Guy characters and quotes, became ubiquitous in the 2000s, turning the show into a merchandising empire worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The show's animation style evolved considerably from the rough, limited animation of early seasons to the cleaner, more polished look of later years. The pilot episode and first season feature noticeably simpler character designs and movements compared to current episodes. As budgets increased and animation technology improved, the show developed better visual quality while maintaining its distinctive style. All animation is produced overseas, primarily in South Korea, by studios that handle the labor-intensive process of creating each frame. This overseas production occasionally led to errors, like Chris's earring appearing on different sides depending on how the Korean animators flipped the drawings. The earring was eventually removed from his character design to avoid continuity problems. The show's iconic opening sequence, featuring the family singing and dancing to the theme song, has remained relatively consistent, though with occasional variations for special episodes. Voice acting on Family Guy requires tremendous versatility from its cast. Seth MacFarlane voices not only Peter, Stewie, and Brian, but also Quagmire, Tom Tucker, Carter Pewterschmidt, Dr. Hartman, and numerous other characters, making him one of the most prolific voice actors in animation. His ability to switch between voices seamlessly and often have conversations between characters he voices himself demonstrates remarkable skill. Alex Borstein brings Lois to life along with Tricia Takanawa, Loretta Brown, and various other female characters. Seth Green's Chris Griffin has become iconic, instantly recognizable despite being based on Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. Mila Kunis took over Meg from Lacey Chabert, making the role her own and voicing the character for over 20 years. Patrick Warburton's distinctive voice makes Joe Swanson memorable, and Mike Henry voiced Cleveland for 20 years before stepping down in 2020. Arif Zahir took over as Cleveland's voice, becoming the first person of color to voice the character. The main cast's chemistry is evident in their performances, and they've received multiple Emmy nominations and wins for their voice work. The show's relationship with censorship and the FCC has been contentious throughout its run. An entire episode called PTV dealt with Peter starting his own uncensored television station after being frustrated with network censorship of his favorite shows. The episode featured a musical number explicitly mocking the FCC and their regulations. calling them out by name and accusing them of arbitrary enforcement. Fox itself would sometimes censor Family Guy content, bleeping words deemed too offensive or cutting scenes considered inappropriate for broadcast. This led to uncensored versions being released on DVD that contained material never seen on television, including additional swearing, nudity, and extreme content. The ongoing tension between creative freedom and broadcast standards became part of the show's identity, with Family Guy positioning itself as a show fighting against corporate and government censorship. Family Guy's humor has always been divisive, splitting audiences between devoted fans and harsh critics. Fans praise the show's willingness to mock anything and everything, from celebrities to historical figures to entire demographics. No topic is too sensitive, no person too sacred to be the subject of jokes. This fearless approach to comedy attracts viewers who appreciate boundary-pushing humor. Critics argue the show relies too heavily on shock value and offensive stereotypes rather than clever writing. Accusations of racism, sexism, homophobia, ableism, and other prejudices have followed the show throughout its run. Jewish characters are portrayed with stereotypical traits. Gay characters are depicted as flamboyantly effeminate. Disabled characters are mocked for their disabilities. Female characters are objectified and demeaned. The writers defend their approach by arguing that nothing is off limits in comedy and that they mock everyone equally. Whether this defense holds up remains hotly debated among viewers and critics. The show has been compared frequently to The Simpsons, with many noting similarities in the dysfunctional family setup and satirical approach to American life. Family Guy has addressed this comparison directly, most notably in the crossover episode The Simpsons Guy, where both families meet. The episode highlighted differences in their comedic styles, with Family Guy's cutaway heavy and referential humor contrasting with The Simpsons' more character-driven storytelling. The crossover allowed both shows to acknowledge their relationship while also defending their unique approaches. South Park has been more critical, producing episodes that explicitly mock Family Guy's writing style and reliance on cutaway gags. The two-part Cartoon Wars storyline depicted Family Guy's writing process as manatees randomly selecting idea balls, suggesting the jokes were random rather than cleverly constructed. These meta-commentaries and rivalries reflect ongoing debates about the show's quality and some place in television comedy history. Character development in Family Guy is intentionally inconsistent, partly by design. The show uses what's called a floating timeline, where characters don't age much, and events from previous episodes are often ignored or contradicted. This allows for fresh starts each episode without being burdened by continuity, but can frustrate viewers looking for character growth and story progression. Stewie has been 1 year old for over 25 years. Meg aged from teenager to 18 but hasn't aged since. Bonnie was pregnant for years, across multiple real-world years, before finally giving birth to Susie. Cleveland left for 4 years but returned seemingly without time passing. These inconsistencies are occasionally acknowledged through fourth-wall-breaking jokes that call attention to the show's loose relationship with continuity and reality. Stewie and Brian's adventures together became emotional centerpieces of the show. Their Road to episodes, including Road to Rhode Island, Road to Europe, Road to Germany, Road to the Multiverse, Road to the North Pole, and others, pair the unlikely duo in various situations, exploring their friendship. These episodes tend to be more character-focused and emotionally resonant than typical Family Guy fare. Time travel episodes where Stewie and Brian journey through different eras show the consequences of changing history. In Back to the Pilot, they accidentally create an alternate timeline when Brian mentions 9/11 to his past self. leading to a dystopian future where the United States collapsed. These time travel stories can get complicated with multiple versions of characters from different timelines interacting, creating paradoxes and temporal chaos. The show has killed off characters both temporarily and permanently over its long run. Brian's death and resurrection was perhaps the most impactful, with fans genuinely mourning during the 2 episodes he was gone. The outcry was so intense that Seth MacFarlane was surprised by how strongly viewers reacted. Diane Simmons was killed off after being revealed as a murderer in And Then There Were Fewer. James Woods died in the same episode, murdered by Diane. Mayor Adam West died off-screen after his real-life counterpart passed away. Horace the bartender died and was replaced by Jerome at the Drunken Clam. These deaths vary in permanence, with some characters returning through flashbacks or time travel shenanigans while others stay dead, depending on the writer's needs. Romantic relationships in Family Guy are consistently tumultuous and dysfunctional. Peter and Lois have broken up and gotten back together multiple times, their marriage surviving affairs, fights, separations, and countless other challenges. Brian's love life is a rotating door of girlfriends and one-night stands while he pines for Lois, the one woman he can't have. Quagmire's relationships are purely sexual and often disturbing until he briefly found love with Cheryl Tiegs, a supermodel from his past. Joe and Bonnie's marriage has faced struggles including separation and reconciliation, with both partners expressing frustration about their situation. Meg's desperate need for affection leads her into unhealthy relationships with inappropriate partners who use and discard her. These romantic storylines add soap opera elements to the sitcom format, giving characters emotional stakes beyond episodic comedy.